We all know that Uganda has recently passed its anti-homosexual bill or act, and it is quite tedious as a law, and it does go all the way into even the death penalty in cases of, who can be punished and on and so on and so forth. I won't go into detail about it, but again, it is on the books one of the most harshest laws in the world when it comes to those participating in the act of homosexuality. And of course, Uganda was warned by certain Western powers, including the United States, that there would be repercussions if that law was enacted. And for a while, and I'm living in Uganda, for a while, it seems that the president thought about signing it. He didn't sign it for a long time. Then it became an actual law. And of course, after it became a law, the United States of America made a few threats. And those threats included removing some aid, putting some sanctions on the country. But now we see that the first step of undermining Uganda from the West is taking place. And I want to read this particular press statement from Matthew Miller, the department spokesperson. And this person says this: in response to human rights abuses and corruption in Uganda, the Department of State announces that it's taking steps to impose visa restrictions under Section 212A3C of the Immigration and Nationality Act on Ugandan individuals believed to be responsible for or complicit in undermining the democratic process in Uganda. As directed by President Biden, the U.S. government will continue to evaluate additional sanctions under this policy, as well as other tools at our disposal to promote accountability for Ugandan officials and other individuals responsible for or complicit in undermining the democratic process in Uganda, abusing human rights, including those of LGBTQ persons, or engaging in corrupt practices. Now, earlier this week, my brother Zach Mukwesa, a few days ago, he made this video about the United States erecting a gay flag at its embassy. Now, I just happened to see this, but let me play this video. Our brother Zach Mukwesa, the English channel, and then I'm going to come back.
Uganda wakes up today seeing the LGBT flag being flown at the US Embassy. Yes, people are shocked in Uganda, Kampala today. Some of them are happy, I would suggest, those who are LGBT community. But for most, very shocked to see today LGBT pride flag at the US Embassy. This is very intriguing, friends. So in Uganda, men and men relationships are prohibited. Women and women relationships are prohibited. You're not allowed to have such partners because they believe it's their tradition. They voted into law a few days ago, a law that completely prohibits men and men promotion, women and women, the LGBT program as it is, because that's their culture. That's their country. That's their choice. That's what they've done in parliament. Now the USA today, through its embassy in Kampala, has flown high the LGBT flag. What does that mean? Is that a sign of defiance? How do you perceive that? Put it into context. This is your house. You're having a party in your house. You say everybody come dressed black on black. Whatever black you have, bring it. Then somebody comes dressed in white. How do you perceive this? A few months back, between the USA and the West in general against Ugandan government through its president, they were going at it about the LGBT laws and stuff like that. Uganda in general, through its president, does not accept LGBT system. Relationship or marriage are prohibited. You will go to jail in Uganda for promoting LGBT.
If you violently grab some children and you them and so on, we kill you.
So I just happened to be at the embassy just 4 or 5 days ago, or at least driving by it. And sure enough, as Brother Zach said, there was the gay flag. Now, here's something you need to know about embassies, if you didn't know this. An embassy is technically property of that country. I know that it seems odd, right? But just think about this. A lot of times, like for example, I believe there was a man, I forgot, he was a Saudi Arabian citizen. He had said some crazy things, according to Saudi Arabia, about the country. And he had American citizenship, and he happened to be in Turkey, and he stopped by the Saudi Arabian embassy. And of course, he was assassinated inside of the Saudi Arabian embassy. But because it happened in the Saudi Arabian embassy, I believe Turkey could not prosecute whatever happened in the embassy because it's technically the property of Saudi Arabia. So when the United States raises its gay flag, it is in Uganda, but it's technically the property of the United States. So when you go on to the United States Embassy soil, you are technically on USA's property, although that property is in Uganda, and that is how they're allowed to get away with it. But then there is another person that I want to talk about right now. This person is Kim Iversen, and Kim Iversen made this video called US Exposed, targeting Uganda for a coup. What's really behind the sudden finger pointing? That's very interesting. Now let me go ahead and play the clip here, and let's get some more understanding.
Well, Uganda has recently enacted some of the strictest anti-gay laws in the world. Anyone engaging in homosexual acts could face life imprisonment or death. Now, before this law, same-sex relationships were already illegal in Uganda, which is a very religiously conservative nation in East Africa. However, the new legislation intensifies the penalties imposed on LGBTQ individuals. It stipulates the death penalty for what they call aggravated homosexuality, which encompasses same-sex relations involving individuals who are HIV positive, children, or other vulnerable persons, which many of us would find egregious, but death penalty is quite severe. Those found guilty of attempted aggravated homosexuality may face imprisonment for up to 14 years. Additionally, engaging in homosexual acts can result in life imprisonment, while attempting same-sex relations can lead to a 10-year prison sentence for Ugandan citizens. Now, after these laws came out, politicians on both sides of the aisle in this country condemned the new laws. The White House released this statement, quote, "The enactment of Uganda's Anti-Homosexuality Act is a tragic violation of universal human rights, one that is not worthy of the Ugandan people, and one that jeopardizes the prospects of critical economic growth for the entire country. I join with the people around the world, and including many in Uganda, in calling for its immediate repeal. No one should have to live in constant fear for their life or being subjected to violence and discrimination. It is wrong." So that came from the Biden White House. Now, Ted Cruz came out with this tweet. He says, quote, "The Uganda law is horrific and wrong. Any law criminalizing homosexuality or imposing the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality is grotesque and an abomination. All civilized nations should join together in condemning this human rights abuse." It's very interesting. Ted Cruz came out with that. Conservative, conservatives for many years in this country fought against gay rights. Obviously, death penalty, life imprisonment is extremely severe, something that I think the vast majority of people in this country do not agree with. So keep that in mind. But very interesting to see the Biden White House and Ted Cruz coming out, amongst many other politicians, condemning this. And though I think many of us agree that this law is incredibly harsh, eyebrows have been raised because many nations have harsh laws that go against Western freedoms and values. But what we know is that our government tends to only pick on those that they've set their sights on in some way. So is Uganda being set up for a coup? Do they have resources we want or ties with China that we're trying to prevent? There are a lot of questions, and we're certainly going to be keeping our eye on it.
So this is interesting. And Kim Iversen, shout out to what she's talking about here, because all of a sudden the United States is worried about corruption in Uganda. That's interesting. We know that a lot of African countries have problems with corruption, and Uganda is no different. But all of a sudden, the United States cares so much about the citizens of Uganda, and they want to make sure that the democratic processes are happening in Uganda, and they want to make sure that LGBTQ people are protected in Uganda. So because of these practices, we're going to, promote these sanctions and these visa restrictions. But if Uganda would not have made this into a law, you wouldn't be so concerned about the corruption. You would still be giving aid. And so what is really the issue here? What does the United States have planned? And that is the fundamental question that we're all so curious about, because all throughout Africa, even in the countries that are not talking about what's going on, People are suffering. Corruption is rife. If you even look at the corruption index in Africa, Uganda is not even in the top 5 or 6. I mean, you got places like, let me not name them, so because I might have to go there and I don't want nobody to open my ass. But you can look at these countries, and there are several countries above Uganda. So if these other countries above Uganda were, and which have more corruption in these indexes, we would see visa restrictions on them. And we don't see visa restrictions on them. But we see visa restrictions on Uganda, which means that the LGBTQ agenda is so strong throughout the world that they want to send a message such that no other African country needs to try this mechanism. Let's intimidate Ghana. Let's intimidate the rest. Kenya too, because Kenya has been very close in with the same theories that Uganda has. So let's stop Rwanda. So in other words, if Africa starts to kind of come together on this, it could be a problem for the West, right? Because Africa has a lot of resources. And if you get Uganda on board, you get Kenya on board, you get Rwanda on board, you get Nigeria on board, you get some of these countries like that really want to swing the bat, the United States is going to have a problem. And then that makes the whole China-Africa situation become stronger. Then you have China, you have Africa, Russia. So now all of these different things can play into that. And then you already are hearing talks of certain African countries saying, hey, listen, let's get rid of the United States dollar. Let's get away from this. So this is a last ditch effort. And is the West having some, like I said, and we all know about African leaders that try to have standards. We know what typically happens, right? Like Thomas Sankara, Magufuli, somehow these people are replaced or these people are assassinated. So is there some sort of plot coming from the United States because Africa and African countries, they want to deliver their own situation. They want to be judged by themselves. They want to live their own way of life. And the thing about it is this, African presidents can never tell the United States how to live their life. And the United States, to be fair, they don't go to Saudi Arabia and tell them what to do they? No. Dubai, homosexuality is against the law. They don't tell Dubai what to do. They don't tell Qatar what to do because these people can defend themselves to a certain level and they have resources. But when they look at Uganda, what they're saying is, listen, you guys can't defend yourself. You don't deserve to be in the same conversation as Egypt. You don't deserve to be in the same conversation as Morocco. So you need to take this particular, ass whooping that we're going to give you and do what we tell you that we're going to do. And if not, then we're going to make it very difficult for your people to do things. And then, we'll escalate it from there. And this is a big wake up call. As blacks, as Africans in the world, we need to see where we're at and how people view us and how they're treating us, but they won't treat that. They won't do the same thing to these other countries that want to stand on the square. Malaysia is a Muslim country for the most part, from what I understand. They're not telling them that, right? So guys, what do you think in the comment section? Subscribe, hit the bell. It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson. I'm out.